Hello and welcome to the TMC Water Cooler Podcast. Ubastij is out for the week, so with me today I have Alikchi, our resident wargaming expert,
Hey there, guys.
and Marc, who you probably recognize from last week's podcast.
Hi.
So let's go ahead and just do our normal thing where we talk about what we've been playing. So, Marc, what have you been getting up to?
I am still just playing Destiny, pretty much. The beta's still going on. Bungie actually did a really crappy thing. They said that their beta was going to be down Monday and Tuesday and then come back up Wednesday, at which point people on the inferior Xbox consoles could also join into the beta. And so I'm sitting at work on Tuesday, and then all of a sudden, like right around 1 in the afternoon, lo and behold, the beta's back The beta's back open. And I'm just like, thanks, Bungie. Like, there goes my one productive evening for the week. So I rushed home, and I started playing more Destiny. It's very good. Played with Darius Johnson for a bit. He's really bad at it. And
what game is Darius good at, though? Like,
He's apparently really good at grinding up characters in WoW.
well, I don't know if I'd call that a game so much as like a job. No.
I also don't know that means you're good.
A lot of qualifiers here.
I think you're just persistent. He's also really good at grinding up characters in Diablo 3.
Yeah, I would say that if there's one way to describe Darius, it is consistent. Persistent. This is such a great
This is a wonderful podcast. We're off to the best start, I think.
I see this in the itinerary. We were supposed to trash Darius for 5 or 6 minutes, so we're about halfway through.
We are indeed. Yeah, and like you gave me a key, and I played some Destiny, although not nearly as much as you, and wrote it up for the site. And yeah, like I saw Destiny at E3, and like got all their press materials and everything. And I was just kind of like, oh, whatever. It's Halo. Okay, cool. But this beta is really impressive.
Yeah, it's really not Halo. I mean, there's definitely like Halo-esque aspects of the game, but like particularly the PvP it's pretty much Halo.
The gunplay.
But yeah, I mean the gunplay, like the way your character moves around, it's all very reminiscent of Halo, which makes sense because that's what they know how to do. Also, the lore, like the backdrop, with your enemies being, the Fallen, which are basically the Covenant, and the Hive, I believe they're called, which is basically the Flood. So there's a lot of like really strong parallels to Halo, but then there's also a lot more, and that's what's really cool about it.
Yeah, it really impressed upon me that they have that same sort of Halo feel of like really floaty jump physics and really weighty like guns and enemies that are constantly moving around and ducking behind cover and stuff. But they did a really good job of doing something that I really wish more games did, which is putting a greater emphasis on exploration and sort of digging around in an environment and finding all of these cool things to do. Like,
yeah, it's super cool. Like there's a lot of stuff to do. I mean, once you hit the level cap in the beta, which I've done 3 times now, there's not too much to do aside from the PvP, and my big concern with the game is that that's going to hold true in the live game. Like you're gonna hit level cap, maybe you'll farm out for some good gear for a little bit, but essentially what you're going to be wanting to do is PvP, and I really suck at the PvP, so that's probably not something that's going to interest me for too long, but there's enough there where I'm completely comfortable like buying that game when it comes out.
So you're hoping for like longer PvE content, more of that basically.
Yeah, so the report that I've heard is that the live game will in fact have a level cap of 20, and I really wish it was like 50 or 60. Like I just really wish there was a lot more to do on a PvE character.
Yeah, that's kind of my concern too, is I'm really hoping that they can keep up that PvE aspect, because as much as I love Halo like multiplayer, that's basically exactly what Crucible is. Like, it is Halo's multiplayer, but you can take your Destiny character into it and that's good. It's a good shooter. Like they balanced it well, but the interesting things that Destiny does are completely unrelated to its PvP. It's all about, like, the interesting things it does are all about the PvE, the exploration, the fire teams, the really interesting shared world shooter, I think they're calling it, where, like, people pop in and out of your game.
Is that going to be the new freaking acronym that everybody bandies around?
A SWUS. I'd love to play the new SWUS.
You want to play the new SWUS? I heard Gearbox is making a SWUS. You can't say SWUS and not sound silly. Like, that's never going to go anywhere.
Well, it's like my friend, she said that instead of calling it MOBA, we should call it FARTS. Fast Action Real-Time Strategy.
That's pretty good. I don't know that your friend could get a job in marketing anywhere, but...
I don't know. It has some flair. There's some panache to that. You have to be very confident in your product.
Yeah, like you would, and you would also have to say "bro" after you say that.
Let's play some farts, bro.
Right. That's the only way it sounds good.
And it sounds great, is what it sounds.
Sorry, excuse me.
yo, dude, let's sniff out the newest farts game.
Oh, look at all the puns.
We are classing it up tonight.
Why isn't the game media pressing for this? Like, why doesn't Joystick just start writing about Dota 2, the farts? But no, the PvP. It's kind of unfair to call the PvP in Destiny Halo, like, because there are some other things to it. Like, you still have your class ability in PvP, and in certain circumstances, like, I don't know if you played the Iron Banner event at all, the weekend that it was up, for like the 2 hours that it was up. But basically, it was a rotation of PvP matches that were still control based. So like it was the same basic stuff. A couple new maps thrown in there, but you weren't your character wasn't. You retained all the benefits of all of your gear and all of your like level and everything. So like it was your true character playing, as opposed to the more vanilla, like standardized character that you play in the other map types or the other PvP types. So, for instance, if you had like a rocket launcher that did like whatever, 100 damage, like 100 fire damage, in Iron Banner it actually does 100 fire damage. In the normal PvP rotation, it does a standard amount of damage, which is like 60 or something. Like they tone everything down so that there's a level playing field in the one, and the other it's completely imbalanced. And I was kind of surprised because I found myself enjoying the completely imbalanced one a lot more. Not because I had good gear. I mean, half my gear was still like white, like it wasn't good at all. But for whatever reason, it just felt more authentic, like it felt more real. And if somebody came around the corner and just like one-shot me, and I'm like, guy, hacker. Like I didn't have that immediate reaction to call them a hacker. I would just be like, oh, that wasn't fair, because I knew going into it that it wasn't going to be fair. So, like, my expectation was different, and it felt a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the PvP is going to be interesting. It's just not the major draw for me, I guess.
Yeah, not for me either. Like, I'm sure I'll play it when I hit, like, cap when it comes out, but it's not going to be something that I come back to a lot.
Yeah. So, Alikchi, how have you been doing, and or what have you been playing?
Well, the past couple weeks, I've been sort of marathoning Paradox mods for the 2 pieces that were published on Europa Universalis 4 mods and Crusader Kings 2. I found a lot of interesting stuff for CK2, a surprising amount of garbage as well. But that's been fun. There's been a lot of interesting stuff coming out of the Paradox community. It used to be all sort of historical accuracy, pedantic mega mods, everyone must play this or you're not getting the authentic experience kind of vibe, but people are being more creative now, and I like that. Other than that, bit of Divinity Original Sin, still an amazing game. Everybody's talking about it, and there's so much content. My multiplayer co-op of that has been going on since release now.
Do you talk to cows?
I did get the pet Pet Detective is what it's called. The trait that allows you to talk to animals, and it is surprisingly useful. There's at least one, like, a rat scurrying around in the caves, or, like you said, a cow nearby that'll usually drop a hint or give you a warning or something like that. They're very sociable, these animals, and it's helped us figure out more bloodless or more clever ways to complete quests and work our way around enemies. It's a very playful game. They don't have any sense of seriousness about it. I don't know. I really like that sort of relaxed attitude as opposed to the Skyrim, you are the savior of mankind kind of vibe. It's a nice. I mean, you basically start off doing a wacky murder mystery. So it's nice to be scaled back. Of course, you do eventually find out that you are basically the chosen one, because you can't be an RPG without being the chosen one. But what are you going to do? It's still good fun.
I was just going to say, I definitely like Skyrim's a great game, but I find it increasingly hard to get back into it for a number of reasons, but one of them is the fact that it really does, it's a very serious game. It's a it's a game you sit down and okay, I got to kill this dragon. I need to do these things. And it's not that you necessarily want to do these things, so you have to.
And in Morrowind, you were basically like Elf Jesus. You had to save the whole world.
I liked being Elf Jesus in Morrowind,
yeah.
But I think that's there's a certain element of nostalgia that goes into that. I don't know, Morrowind was a very important game for me. So,
well, I also think the big thing with Morrowind is you kind of don't know what is going on in Morrowind at all, right? You know exactly what's going on in Oblivion and Skyrim right away, right? Both games kind of tell you, oh, you're the chosen one, save the world, or whatever. You're immediately confronted with the main antagonist and everything. But in Morrowind, it kind of takes its time to build you up. It hints at your greater purpose.
Yeah.
But it just kind of tosses you in, and then you aren't even really told, or you don't really figure things out about who you are, or any of that until halfway through the game. So it does a really good job of building you up as the chosen one, whereas Skyrim and Oblivion are just kind of whatever, you're the guy that's supposed to save the world, just go do it, you dummy.
Go kill some dragons, meathead.
Right, pretty much. And, yeah, I really like the Divinity series writing. It's always been kind of a well-written series, kind of tongue-in-cheek, poking fun at the sort of ultra-seriousness that you see in stuff I want to say Warcraft, but Warcraft is goofy as hell. But, Elder Scrolls and other contemporary
Baldur's
fantasy
Gate
games.
A little, yeah.
Yeah. Baldur's Gate, BioWare sort of, Dragon's Age, that kind of stuff. And they've always kind of, poked fun at that. Even, way back with the original Divinity was kind of a joke directed at Diablo. And then Divinity 2 was kind of a joke directed at Elder Scrolls games. Dragon Commander wasn't a joke at all. And Original Sin is kind of a return to form, but still kind of keeping that tongue-in-cheek attitude. And they really do write very well. Yeah.
Even when the writing is bad, it's bad and campy. And I can forgive bad writing if it's vaguely amusing. So it's refreshing, I think.
So it's more when it's bad, it's Sharknado bad.
Yeah, kind of.
As opposed to Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark, which is an awful movie that nobody should even attempt to load up on Netflix ever in your entire life.
I have to do it now, just FYI.
God, don't. Dude, I turned it off 5 minutes in. It was.
Do you want to know what a terrible movie is? Atlantic Rim.
Atlantic Rim. That's the one with the Jaegers.
Yeah, so when Pacific Rim was coming out, there's that one movie company, Asylum, I think they're called.
Yeah, they do all the parodies, yeah.
Well, not really parodies, it's consumer confusion movies where they try, and they did Sharknado, where they try to sort of confuse you into watching the movie by giving it a similar name and a similar premise. So Atlantic Rim is basically Pacific Rim, but minus budget and minus everything that would make it even possibly interesting, and dragged out for 2.5 hours.
They have like 3
It's-
sets. It's pretty great.
Oh my god, they use the same submarine set that they use in every single Asylum movie, and the way that they control the machines is I'm not even joking. I'm not yanking your sock. They have like the little Nerf like headset flip down that you give to like an 8-year-old with their like little Nerf gun to make them feel really cool. That's what they use for the like little mental interface.
That's what they used in Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark.
Yeah, it's like a recurring theme. Like they have that exact same prop and they just use it in all of their movies.
That's magical.
It's but we're getting kind of off point.
So what have you been playing there, good sir?
So I have been playing Wolfenstein: The New Order. It came out a while ago. I actually got most of the way through it, and then my hard drive crashed, and so I'm replaying it. And that game is really good. Like surprisingly, I may have talked about it on the podcast before, but I'm just going to reiterate that it is, for a game that is called Wolfenstein, it has a surprising amount of emotional depth. Like it is a genuinely well written game, and that is not something that I ever would have thought I'd ever say about a modern Wolfenstein game, because they're all just stupid.
It's such a preposterous statement that I still don't believe you.
Yeah, like, but it is very good. It's a very satisfying game to play, and it has a very interesting story, and the characters have actual arcs, and they have emotions, and it's good. Like, it's a good game. So, and then also I've been playing Warframe. Update 14 came out, and I've been playing the disco ball hurling Mirage. Her ultimate throws this big ball that shoots lasers everywhere, and it looks like a disco ball, and it's really stupid. But it completely destroys people, so it's great. Warframe is really good, as evidenced by the fact that we keep talking about it on the site. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I've been playing. That, and to segue into our next topic, I've been playing Distant Worlds Universe. So we're trying to put more of a focus on wargaming on the site. So I know each of us has been kind of spending a lot of time in various war games, especially you, Alikchi. Like, you're the resident wargaming expert around here.
I try.
Yeah, but
I don't know. I have like 900 hours in Crusader Kings.
well, let's compare hours. Like, I have both you and Alikchi on Steam, so let's see if you can measure up to Alikchi's.
It's just that one game though. He's got to have a bunch of games I don't even have.
Yeah,
That's true.
I have 607 hours in CK2, but I'm up to 1,200 in EU4. So
You have 1,200 hours in EU4.
I cheated, to be fair. I make mods, and to test them, you put it on observer mode and let it run overnight. So it's slightly inflated from multiple 10-hour sessions. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Alikchi, I thought your hourly credentials were real. I'm gonna have to. You're not our wargaming correspondent anymore.
Man. Back down to janitor.
My respect for you has just been shaken. I've based everything I knew about you on how many hours you had played Europa Universalis 4.
It's true.
That's
My
an
life
insane
is a
amount of
lie.
time still, though. That's like a lot of time with that game running. Like, that's...
Yeah, for sure. It's I burned myself out on it, basically. Working on the mod and doing multiplayer. It's still a fantastic game. Thank God Paradox is so good with their DLC model, because they keep coming out with something, a patch or a DLC every 3 or 4 months. It's usually enough to bring me back, at least for another, 100 years of gameplay.
Couple hundred hours.
Yeah, it's a couple hundred.
Can you even use the phrase, I got burned out, after logging that many hours? Like, I don't know that that's burned out. I think that's, like, maybe you beat the game. Like, maybe you just beat it. Like, you've done it all.
You've just exhausted the game's potential. Like, that's it. You're done.
Which is pretty impressive that these Paradox war games, like, you can invest hundreds and hundreds of hours into them. More hours than you can into Skyrim, like, by miles. And still, like, I don't know about you, but, like, I still feel like I don't know I don't know everything about CK2. Like, I don't know how everything works.
Yeah,
in
I
that
still
game.
get surprised in CK2, which is fantastic, and the engine will just spit out things at you that you couldn't have predicted, like, oh, my daughter is the spawn of Satan. I guess I'm gonna have to deal with this now.
I love possessed characters; they're the best. But
Yeah.
but so Distant World, what is it?
Distant Worlds Universe.
Distant Worlds Universe. That's a terrible name.
It is.
Is the game any good?
So I'm pretty sure I sold Alikchi on this game last week. But Distant Worlds Universe is a Space 4X. It's a pausable real-time game. And think of it kind of like Sword of the Stars or Endless Space or a much, much larger Sins of a Solar Empire. The big thing that it does is, instead of playing like this monolithic, all-controlling government, where like you control every aspect of your citizens' lives, there's actually a underlying model of civilian behavior. So like, you can't mine anything, you can't trade anything. All you can really do is you can produce ships, you can explore new systems, and you can ship people off to new systems to colonize them. But there's like this really complex model of how your citizens interact with your empire and with other empires and stuff, so that you feel more like a government and less like this totalitarian regime that just controls every aspect of every single person's life. And not only that, but the game is so complex that you can't. Like, it is not a game that you can micromanage. It's a game that you have to kind of pick what way you want to play it and play it that way. Like, personally, I really enjoy the exploration and trading aspects of the game. So I set all of my advisors to automate like military and home production and that kind of stuff. And then I just grab like a ship and I just go exploring and like talking to people and like striking up trade agreements and doing diplomacy and stuff. But if you're
is the combat good in it though too? Like are certain aspects of it better than others, or?
I would say that the whole of it is actually just very well done. So the combat is just you order guys to fight and they fight. Like, there's no micromanagement of it. It's there is individual ship AI. I think you can tell ships like what to shoot, like what enemy ships to shoot, but you can't determine like what subsystems. But ships, you design your ships however you want. That's another thing. And all of those materials that you like, all the things that you build in your ship actually require materials that are mined by your citizens and then sold to you, the government. So you can do things like, let's say that you control the region of space that has like unobtainium, right? And unobtainium is the only thing that will allow people to make phasers. Like, you can't make a phaser without unobtainium. You can completely freeze out other empires on unobtainium, so even if they've researched phasers, they can't make it. And every single aspect, every single component that you can make in the game is tied to one of those resources. So like, whenever you build a ship, it's like, oh, you pay this much money to make the ship, but at the same time, it's not you just buying a ship, you're actually buying the materials from the civilians in your empire, and then those materials are then put into the ship. So if you don't have those materials flowing in from trade or whatever, then you just straight up can't like make the ship.
If you wanted to make the ship, it would automatically like when you click make a ship, it just happens, right? You don't have to allocate resources. Because I'm getting flashbacks to Victoria 2 and like building tank divisions to find out I don't have the oil to travel to power them or that sort of business.
Yeah, it's all automatic. Like, if you can't make a ship, it'll just like be redded out and it'll say like, no, you can't do this. And it won't be taken into account in your money, like when you buy the resources.
It's a pretty pricey game.
Oh yeah, it is $60 because it is a niche title. I mean, I don't really like to talk about prices when it comes to reviews and stuff, but it is like legitimately an expensive game. But it's also kind of like Paradox games. Like, I can feel it digging into me. I can feel it's like controlling my life. Like, I'm probably gonna spend like an Alikchi amount of time on this game.
An Alikchi, is that like a unit of measurement now?
It is.
It's like a Friedman, yeah. So he'll probably spend 4 or 5 months. Does this have a multiplayer, or is it purely single player right now?
I'm not sure, actually. I haven't played any. I haven't like checked to see if it has any multiplayer yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does. It also, the cool thing about it is it supports mods, like very, very extensive mods, and it is single player only. So single player only, but it does support extensive modding. So like the most popular mod, I believe, is the Next Generation mod, where you can play as Starfleet or Dominion or the Klingons or whatever in Star Trek. But there's also like Battlestar Galactica. There's earlier era Star Trek stuff. If it is a sci-fi setting, chances are there is a mod for it, and it's got a really detailed research and production system. The whole aforementioned like civilian thing where you have this sort of undercurrent of AI that is providing for your empire. I would say that it is the first game that I have ever played that genuinely makes me feel like a government. Not like with Crusader Kings 2 and EU4, like they're really good games and they make you feel like you're playing as an empire, but you do kind of control every aspect of your citizens' lives, right?
You're basically like an animating spirit of a whole country or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like it's not so much that you control citizens; it's that they don't necessarily exist. Like,
yeah. Whereas, like in Distant Worlds universe, you can actually see like the citizen ships floating around your empire, and when they dock, they'll trade, and you'll get taxes and stuff for it, and like you can tell exactly what's going on at any particular point in time just by looking at the sort of bees buzzing around your hive. And I've never played a game like that. I've never played a game that makes me think, oh, this is like what it must be like to be a government, like just as a whole, right? Where I can't control the people under me, but what I can do is try to provide for them and like protect them and stuff. And I think that's its biggest strength. And it is a very, very good 4X game. So kind of an advertisement, unintentionally, or intentionally, but because I'll be putting up a written review of it on the site. But it is definitely very good, and I want Alikchi to play it because I have a feeling, Alikchi, that you like this is, if you're going to get into a space game, this is the space game that you will get into because like, damn.
that's the thing. Is like not many space games, like not many 4X games have really clicked with me ever. Because it is a bit too much like micromanagement typically, and like some people really geek out about that. They really like it. I just don't like. I just want to be. I either want to be God or I want to be close to that.
Yeah. I'm a person who bought Sins of a Solar Empire when it was on sale and Endless Space when it was on sale. And both of them I'd dip into the tutorial and I'd sort of go, why do I have to take care of this? This is busy work. I think I'll go back to shooting things. But
yep.
I know that the format, it clearly is a really great game, and I think Distant Worlds might be the one to pull me in and destroy my output for this website.
So don't no, don't play that game.
You are forbidden.
It's too expensive. It's too expensive, Alikchi. It's too expensive.
Oh yeah, you're right. Fair point.
You can't play.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even touched upon like there's pirates, there's independent colonies that can break off from your empire and like form their own little mini empires. There's like other governments can convince your colonies to join with them and like annex them, and like imagine if every single city and every single citizen in every single city in civilization had its own like identity that could make decisions, and you have to sort of like get them to listen to you. Like that's kind of how Distant Worlds universe is. And the nice thing is like it does have very good automation, like probably the best in any 4X game I've ever seen. So all you have to do is like pick an area that you're interested in, set everything else to automate, and you'll be fine. Like the AI that automates is the exact same AI that plays the game. So you could actually just automate everything and like zoom out and watch your little empire like bloom and stuff. So really interesting stuff. Really, really fun. Also a pretty game, like really good sprite work. We were talking about AI war earlier, Alikchi.
Yeah.
I remember. And that game, when it does sprites, the sprites are really beautiful. But when it does pre-rendered 3D objects, oh my god. Pre-rendered 3D just makes me barf. But enough about Distant Worlds Universe. Let's talk about Battle Academy 2, which is the made by the same guys that are making Distant Worlds Universe, and it's coming out soon.
Yes.
So, well, not made by, but published by, I guess. So, and I know you have a copy of it for preview. So, like, how are you finding it so far?
It's, I was a little bit doubtful of it at first. I'd heard some good things, some bad things. It definitely looks and feels a lot like an iPad game, but it also reminds me of XCOM 2012, the Firaxis remake. It's turn-based, set in the Eastern Front, World War II. You can play as the Soviets or the Germans. There campaigns, which are basically sets of missions, and there are, randomly generated skirmishes. But it has there are more features and there's more depth to it than I expected just from looking at it, which is also my reaction to XCOM 2012 when it came out. It's solid, I think. My main problems with it are aesthetic, honestly. When you move vehicles or tanks or infantry around the map, they move kind of in this madcap way that makes it look like they're from like a 1910s movie, the kind that run at like 150% speed. So everything sort of goes zoom, zoom, and shoots at each other in unison, and it's kind of adorable, but it also sort of takes you out. But the actual, gameplay, the tactics, is pretty solid. Surprisingly solid. And I'm enjoying it. I don't think I've spent enough time with it to give a proper verdict, but it's a lot better than I thought it would be, and apparently it's a leap above the original Battle Academy. So I think it'll be pretty good, especially considering it's linked into Slytherin's play-by-email system, which is integrated with the game.
What is that?
It's Slytherin has set up a play-by-email server, which I have used a lot playing Commander the Great War, which I'll talk about on the site probably sometime in the next month or two. But basically, it's sort of an integrated multiplayer server for these turn-based games. It'll automatically send you an email when your opponent has sent you a new turn, but you don't have to do any of the moving files around that like you would have to with most war games or Solium Infernum or anything like that. So it's a nice time saver, and I have the feeling that even though this is basically like a dumbed down combat mission in some ways, or dumbed down Panzer General or any of those, it's got its own charm and its own sort of market. I think it could be a lot of fun. If you had a regular opponent, you can buy units at the start of a skirmish. It reminds me a lot of Combat Mission back in the day, where you had these really fun, dynamic, tactical engagements. So I'm unironically hopeful for it, despite my aesthetic problems with it.
I don't know. It sounds kind of like Benny Hill theme plays when your guys move around, and that kind of
Does
like
the
that.
Benny Hill theme play? Like, can somebody make a mod for that?
I hope so. That would be great.
I would probably be more sold on the game if the Benny Hill theme actually did play.
Like, the first thing I saw in the tutorial after I moved my units around for a little bit was a Tiger tank just shooting down a street, coming to a stall.
This sounds amazing. Why would you have a problem with this?
Yeah, why would you possibly find that annoying
Yeah,
ever?
fair points. Come on, it's about the Eastern Front. It has to be gritty and serious.
Yeah,
Well,
true.
that's a good point. Like, how does it compare? Did you ever play Company of Heroes 2?
I did not. I played a lot of, what are those games called by the Russian guys? I'm scrolling through
Men of War?
Yeah, I played a lot of Men of War, and I do love those games, even if they are clunkers in every sense of the word. But I think, I don't know, Men of War it's so finicky, and this is so simple. I mean, you can basically it's designed for porting to iPad, so you can play this game with one click, just your mouse, and it's just so accessible, so easy to jump in. I think it has a future. It could do very well.
Well, that's good. I never played any of the Battle Academies, but I have very fond memories of the old Panzer General games.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Panzer General 1 and 2, which I know that they're actually making more like Slytherin is working on more Panzer General games, right? And then there's also
I believe that's correct.
Unity of Command, which is another game that I've tasked you with reviewing. Also a very Panzer General influenced game.
For sure.
So,
do you ever give Alikchi like any fun games to play? Because it doesn't sound like it terribly much.
I'm just sick enough that I enjoy the torture. It's they're good games. Unity of Command is maybe not a game that I would come back to regularly, but you have to admire what they did with it. It's a really impressive and fun game for what it is.
It's really, like, just to talk about Unity of Command for a minute, like, they really streamlined the Panzer General experience very effectively with that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you want somebody to get into war games, specifically, like, hex-based war games, Unity of Command is, like, the best game to point at somebody, because everything is, like, really clear, the visuals are really, like, crisp and identifiable, just at a glance. All of the mechanics are simplified to the point of, but, like, they still make sense, right?
Right.
They're just really, really easy to understand, so.
They did kind of a masterpiece of interface design, coming out of this developer that basically no one had heard of, and they did a wonderful job. If I had one criticism for Unity of Command, the scenarios, they're pretty tight. You have, 8 turns to do task, whatever, and usually it'll take you 7. It feels kind of like picking a lock. There's a lot of replayability in there, in having to try the scenario 3 or 4 times to figure out the optimal configuration and pathing of movements, but I don't know. I am hopeful, excited to try out the Black Turn and Red Turn DLC. I picked those up, and I've never played those, and those are supposed to have bigger maps, longer campaigns, and that was my main criticism of vanilla Unity of Command, so could be pretty good.
Yeah, my big problem with that game is, as you said, the scenarios are really tight. So there's like no room for error. There's no room for taking it slow. In Unity of Command, you dive in or you lose. Like there is no playing it cautious. There's no advancing slowly. There's none of that. It's punch them in the face and then drag their corpse with you as you like sprint to the exit. Like
it's a class on Blitzkrieg for sure. And if you screw up just a little bit of it, whoop, there go your supply lines. You might as well just start over.
Yeah.
AI is cutthroat. That's the other thing about that game. It is some of the most clever and painful and frustrating AI, and I mean those all in a good way, that I've seen at from any war game.
And then I know you've been playing a lot of to direct this towards Mark. I know you've been playing a lot of Crusader Kings 2, and being the medieval aristocratic jerk that you are.
Wow. Wow. That was that kind of hurt.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy.
that kind of hurt. Maybe I don't know. Is this podcast clean, or can we drop a bomb if necessary? Because I feel it's warranted right now. But
you can drop a bomb. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Maybe you could go fuck yourself. I feel better. Okay. So I haven't been playing too much Crusader Kings 2 recently, mainly because my time to play games is actually still really, really restricted, and what time I have had, I've been playing Destiny. But yeah, I mean, Crusader Kings in general, like with a lot of these other war games you guys are talking about, like I've been kind of looking them up on the fly while you talk about them. They're very I don't know what the appropriate word is for them, but they're very
involved is probably
not so much involved, because I mean you can get involved in Crusader Kings 2 if you wanted to. And actually, in a lot of ways, it's tremendously involved to get the most out of it. But they're very like
Esoteric?
esoteric's maybe a good word. Like it's fine. It's like coarse sand versus fine sand. Like it's very fine. Like these war games you guys are talking about, where they're very small, almost micro level. Like you are moving this tank division here. You know, you're using these hexes to traverse this territory. Like it's very, very zoomed in. And the thing I like about Crusader Kings 2, and to a somewhat lesser extent, EU4, is you can zoom in on stuff, but it's not that kind of stuff. Like, I don't really care how my army gets from, you know, Normandy to the south of France. I don't care. Like, I don't want to deal with any of that. You know, just I want to click in the south of France, and then I will watch the army as it marches down there, just to make sure that I don't get, you know, hammered on the way. But I don't want to, like, nurse it along all the way down there. The things that I do want to zoom in on are, like, politics, basically. So, like, you know, who's allies with this guy? You know, how likely are they to actually come help this guy if I invaded him? You know, what is his army? What's his situation? How many people is he at war with right now? Is he at war with infidels or fellow Christians or whatever? Like, you can look at a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, and you can also, you know, you can play a pretty deep game in terms of ensuring you have the best counselors at your disposal in Crusader Kings 2, so because you can actually pull up a search function that you can search all the characters in the game, and you can filter them according to like religion and culture and stuff. But if you wanted to, you could actually go out into the war, like in the game world, and find the best spy master in the entire world, and, you know, give him some gold. You know, hopefully he's of the same religion as you, otherwise he ain't coming anyways. But like, you can entice him to come to your kingdom and be your new spy master, and then use him to kill like your brother or whoever is causing trouble for you. Like, you know, it's very political, like familial kind of backstabbing that I sadly, now that I said that out loud, that I really enjoy. Like, all of a sudden I saw where my train of thought was going, and I was like, oh, that's gonna sound bad.
Ah, that's grand strategy. Unity of command, you're right. Pretty much all the games apart from Distant Worlds Universe, I guess, that we've been talking about are, you know, at most operational or tactical games. But CK2 it's huge. It's everything.
Right, and you know, it's not to take anything away from those games, and I still like. It's just looking at strategy in a narrowly defined context. Like, you have this scenario that you have to beat, whether it's specifically spelled out for you or it's just like, hey, you know, beat the Russians or whatever. Like, you still have this very limited time frame in which to do this thing. Whereas Crusader Kings 2, like with the DLC, you have from 876 or 867, whichever one it is, all the way to 1453, I believe.
Basically the start of EU.
Yeah, there's a small gap in between them.
Right.
But
EU4 starts in 1444. CK2 starts ends in 53. There's an overlap there.
Yeah. So, like, you know, it's just the pure time scale that you're dealing with is pretty cool. You know, and I like to see when, like, basically a cadet branch of my family that, like, I marry off or exile or whatever starts to do well. And, like, I like to see that, but I kind of don't at the same time, because chances are they have claims on my stuff. So if all of a sudden, like, my cousin is the king of Poland and I'm sitting in Byzantium, like, crap, you know, like, that could be an issue. You know, that kind of unexpected turns of events that CK2 can present you is super cool. I like that. I like that kind of nitty-gritty view versus the, you know, getting your infantry division across the border or whatever. Like,
yeah. I actually wonder why, I haven't really seen it, but I wonder why Paradox hasn't put out a Romance of the Three Kingdoms game. Because that seems like it would be right up their alley, especially with the CK2 stuff. Don't give them any ideas, though, please, because I'm still banking on a new Rome.
Like, I want a new Rome game. Like, a good Rome game.
Like a EU Rome.
Yeah, like, I want another one of those, basically.
Yeah, fingers crossed. They have something called Project Augustus that they haven't announced yet, but I don't. I think
Wow,
it's...
that's a pretty esoteric name. I mean, what could that possibly be? Like,
yeah, who knows? It's a mystery.
probably a space game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably a game about August.
Just the month of August.
Yeah, like it's just a game about like walking in summertime
and being really hot.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like a heat management simulator.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh boy.
You could be an HVAC guy.
It makes your computer overheat. It makes your computer overheat, and you have to manage the heat of your computer.
Right. It's just a benchmark software. It's. But no, like I pretty much Paradox can't do much wrong as far as I'm concerned. It took me a while for EU4 to click. Like it transitioning from CK2 to EU4 is like a really rough proposition. I think if you're really deep into CK2, it's going to take you a minute to kind of switch gears and get into EU4, because now all of a sudden you're not helming this dynasty, you're helming this nation, and the dynasty doesn't really fucking matter at all. Like, it doesn't, it's basically just stat modifiers at that point. And so, that's difficult to deal with, but once you get adjusted to that, it has the same kind of, it's even wider in scale. It literally is the entire world. And while parts of it are not fleshed out particularly well, you can still definitely go wherever you wanted to, basically.
There's still a lot to do, and EU4 thrives in multiplayer, I think, because it brings back that sort of sense of character. I do miss when I play EU4 CK2's characters, even though, there's part of me that thinks it'd be really fun to just watch your dukes become less and less powerful over time until they all die in a French Revolution style event.
That would be super cool, yeah.
Do you know what I'd really love to see from CK2? I'd really love to see a multiplayer scenario of CK2 or a multiplayer game where they could give quite literally every single person, like every single character on the board. I know this is impossible, but it would be great if they give every single character on the board to somebody.
Like 1,000
yeah.
multiplayer game, that'd be great.
Like, could you imagine?
Oh God, can you even imagine that?
Paradox needs to do some work before they can do that. I was playing a Crusader Kings 2 multiplayer game today, and it took 15 minutes for us to get a 9-person game going, because we, of course, had to all use Ruler Designer. And then it crashed on game start because someone pressed tab, which, FYI, that'll make CK2 crash. So don't do that.
What?
Yeah, their chat is broken in multiplayer. Tab is the open chat button. And currently, if you press tab, you crash. So don't accidentally hit that button.
Oh my God.
I had a good time playing as the Aztec Count of Iceland, though, for the solid minute.
The Aztec Count of Iceland. That's pretty tremendous there.
Well, hey, maybe as the Aztec Count of Iceland, you'll be able to fix EVE Online. Oh.
Wow. Listen, CCP is doing a very good job at
destroying their brand.
Improving EVE Online. Just this last week, the new patch, I guess you'd call it, or expansion, whatever they're calling it now, the new update, Krius came out, which is
it's definitely a thing.
It's definitely out. So, how about those other games?
Yeah, so really important, though, like more important than Krius, is actually No Man's Sky, which is a game that's coming out on PlayStation 4 next year. I'm, like, super impressed by this game. Not because, like, obviously I haven't played it, right? And, not very many people have played it, I imagine, at this point. But the thought process behind the game and how they're constructing the game is, to me, like, one of the more interesting developments in the gaming industry for a long time. Like the approach they're taking with it. So basically, and I think the site just ran something about No Man's Sky, and not to like denigrate the site at all, but the really good source for information is actually a series of GameSpot videos, which I never thought I'd ever say that phrase, ever. But it's GameSpot interviews that and videos that they did, primarily the two by Danny O'Dwyer, but the third one's okay too. They sat down and basically talked to Sean Murray, who's one of exactly 4 people who started making this game. I think their studio's actually up to like I've heard 10 and 13.
Just a little bit of history, real quick, before we get back into No Man's Sky.
Nobody cares about that.
This studio made Joe Danger, which is somewhere between Trials and Excitebike.
I was getting to that, you jerk. Jeez. Like, seriously, you had your say with Distant Universe World?
Distant, that's close enough, whatever.
But no, that is important to note. So the studio started out with 4 people, and basically 3 of them are programmers and one's an artist. And previously they had only made Joe Danger, which is a game that is nothing like this game. Like it's nothing like this game. And they sat down and basically decided to, obviously they had all the time in the world and all the money in the world, so they decided to make like the biggest game ever made. So they sat down. Apparently they spent a whole year of development time, not on like the engine necessarily, but just on the code that generates the universe. Just building that and tweaking that and making it so that it didn't result in like just terrible things. And so they spent a year doing that, and they've built this engine in this game that essentially, like, they're not really describing very well what you do in the game or like what you're supposed to do or what the game's even about, other than to say that No Man's Sky is a galaxy, like a 2-scale galaxy with planets in it and stars and stuff, and that's all pretty much to scale, that you just exist in. And it's up to you to figure out what you want to do with it. They said the broad goal for most people is going to be migrating from where they start, which is out on the fringes of the galaxy, towards the center of it, for some reason. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just, I don't know. They haven't said anything. Like, there's no real story to the game, but somehow there will be some kind of impetus to move you towards the center of the galaxy. But at the same time, like with the planets being basically to scale, you could actually spend your entire time playing No Man's Sky, like on one planet or in one system, and just exploring that one little solar system, because it's so vast. Like, and as you explore and you encounter things, like if you encounter a new species that looks like, a gazelle and a crocodile crossed together or whatever, you get to name that species, and if anybody else should happen to come across that species on that planet, a little thing will pop up that says, discovered by this guy. And so, like, you have this really, I've never seen a game, basically, that appears to represent the concept of exploration so well. Like, you actually are exploring. Like, it feels like a game that, if you, back in the 1800s and you were exploring, like, the Congo or whatever, like, you would get what this game is. It's about finding things that nobody else has seen before and may never see again, and putting your own name on it, putting your own mark on what's going on in the universe. And yeah, it's super cool, to the point where, like, I don't think, and this is going to sound like super hyperbolic, and it's not meant to be. It's my honest assessment, is I don't think games are going to necessarily be the same after this game comes out. Like, I think this is going to unveil a new way of looking at making games, like, completely.
Wow.
Because everything about it is procedural. Like, they've built these algorithms that build solar systems. Like they start with a star, essentially, from what I can gather. They start with a star, and there's certain variables that go into making it, whether it's like our sun or if it's a red dwarf or whatever. And so then you have the star, and then based upon what kind of star it is and certain other variables that are semi-random, it will determine if there's any planets in that system, if there are, how big they are, how numerous they are, etc. Then it transitions into the planet, and it says, okay, well, given all these other circumstances, how is this planet going to look? Like, what kind of elements are on the planet which will affect the planet's color, like the color of its sky and its ground and its water or whatever. And then it says, okay, well, now, given these set of circumstances, what kind of wildlife would exist on this planet? Can wildlife exist on this planet? And then it would start to build that, and so it just kind of goes all the way down the line, like from, it's very like creationist almost, like proposition to just start with this one thing, and then from that one thing, all of these other things are spawned, and to do that on the fly, and to do it in a way that looks good. I mean, from what we can tell, like the game looks amazing. The aesthetic is super cool, and to do it in a way that makes sense to the human eye is really interesting. Because like they're trying to avoid having a planet where like the sky is dark red, the water is dark red, and the earth is dark red, and so like you can't tell the difference between anything, which could potentially happen if it was truly random. So they're trying to like tweak these algorithms into producing a universe that is understandable by the human eye and pleasurable to look at, but still be like internally consistent without any kind of preset pieces to it to an extent. So it's just tremendous. Like the game itself could be totally boring. Like we could all get No Man's Sky and like pile in there and be like, wow, this really sucks to be all by myself and I can't play with my friends. And wow, look, there's a freaking dinosaur. I don't care. Like there's nothing to do. Like it could totally be a flop in terms of Murph's favorite or Teg's favorite word, gameplay.
Oh my
But,
god, I will kill you.
But just the concept of taking procedural generation to this kind of level, I think, is going to be the thing that changes the way a lot of games are made.
So it's actually kind of interesting because there are two games that I think of actually when No Man's Sky is brought up, and that's Evacron Mercenary. I don't know if you've played Evacron at all.
Nobody's ever heard any of the games you bring up, Tag. God.
Evacron is available on Steam. It is almost exactly No Man's Sky. Like it is a full 2-scale galaxy where you can fly around and you can go down to planets.
What's it called?
Evacron Mercenary.
Evacron?
Yeah. EVOCHRON Mercenary. It's and it is a procedurally generated universe, and there's a lot of stuff to do. The big problem though that Evacron has is kind of like it's a really esoteric game to try and get into. Like, I mean, we're all familiar with Eve levels of spreadsheetery, and that's kind of how Evacron is. Even though it's ostensibly a procedurally generated dogfighting space sim, where you fly around and you jump to different systems and you fight dudes and you go to planets and all like real smooth transitions everywhere and everything, but it's just a pain to get into. And I think the biggest thing that No Man's Sky is going to offer over Evacron is they really seem to be pushing the accessibility angle, which is important because there are quite a bit of games actually that do this whole procedural generated universe and setting and everything like that, but
yeah, but I don't think like I'm reading this game right now, and like nothing about this strikes me as the same level of like technology basically that's been invested into doing that. Like I know about procedural generated games, like there's a reason why that term is known in the industry. I just don't know that any of them promise or have delivered, and again, like we don't know, like this whole game could flop, like it could actually just be could be Peter Molyneux. Like I think that's what the TMC article referred to was like, you know, Sean Murray could basically be some dude who is actually Peter Molyneux wearing a mask or something. Like it's totally totally feasible that this game is all smoke and mirrors, but I don't think it is. Like,
yeah, I think the big thing that No Man's Sky is going to do is kind of open this up to the average person, because like Evicron does this, but Evicron is horribly, horribly dense. Like, it is difficult to get into. But everything that we've been shown about No Man's Sky, it just looks like really easy and simple to understand. Like, their interface looks really clean. They've got a really nice art style. That is, like, sort of cartoony exaggeration of aliens and ships and stuff. So it definitely looks really great. And also, it's not a space sim. I love this game. Mirror Moon EP is a puzzle game where you and everybody else who plays the game, you're dropped into this procedurally generated universe, and you have to solve puzzles on all of these different planets. And then the puzzles are all like random combinations of like really confusing game elements of like visually and auditorially and everything like that. And but it does that same sort of thing where they're gradually working their way towards something bigger. But I definitely think that No Man's Sky is going to be like, I don't know if it's going to be a revolution, but I definitely think that it's part of this, like, out of all the space sims that we're looking at, like, the ones that we should be paying attention to as far as like as I'm concerned are No Man's Sky for obvious reasons, Elite Dangerous for obvious reasons, and Limit Theory, because the developer of Limit Theory is probably a literal genius. So,
I haven't heard of Limit Theory.
Nor have I.
We've covered it a few times on the site. It's this guy is building a game that every single part of the game, from the ships to the universe that you play in to down to like the minerals and weapons that you use, are all procedurally generated, but he wants to make it impactful. So he's like putting a lot of work into the AI and how things look and how everything interacts. And he puts
so he's
out
basically making No Man's Sky.
Like but he's one guy. Like we
so
put up.
There are only 4 of them.
Yeah, like he's basically making that sort of thing. And we put up the developer diaries on the site each month because the guy really, really knows how to promote himself. And he and not even in like he's super confident way or anything like that. The guy is just like, hearing him talk about his game, he's super passionate about it. And
well, and that's honestly one of the things that came across to me with No Man's Sky too, in the GameSpot interviews that were done, is they're primarily done with Sean Murray, who's like the head of the quartet basically, and the dude seems very genuine, like he doesn't even know how best to describe what he's doing. He just has this internal vision kind of thing going on where like you can tell that he knows exactly what he sees in his head, and that's the game that's going to come out. He just doesn't know necessarily how to describe it in a way that differentiates itself from other games, basically.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know how to do that. And like, I'm fine with that because like it's just him and like 3 other people. Or I'm sure they've gotten some more staff recently, but
rather have a dreamer who's not perfectly articulate than an unambitious game with a big marketing staff.
Right, exactly.
Or rather, it's much better to have somebody with a clear and communicated vision at the helm, because like the guy, you really get a sense that he knows exactly what he's aiming for, and he actually communicates it pretty well, I think. Like, I have an idea of what No Man's Sky is supposed to be, and and he does a really good job of promoting it. Same for the guy that does Limit Theory. Same for David Braben for Elite Dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
Don't forget Enemy Starfighter too.
Oh yes, Mike Tipple for Enemy Starfighter. Also another really that one's not so much a space sim, but it is a space game, and it's amazing. Tipple gave me a beta key, and I can say right now, like, where I'm holding off on an impressions until he gets farther along, but that game is incredible, like just straight up incredible. So that is another game that we're going to be keeping an eye on. But the point being, it really helps to have somebody with a clear vision at the helm, and not like a Chris Robertsian vision of like, well, wouldn't it be cool if our game is like literally just everything? But,
Imagine the future, but a video game.
yeah, like
wouldn't it be cool if we could make a game on 1/10 the budget of, say, Destiny that does everything that Destiny wishes it could be? Like, yeah, Chris, that would be really cool. You probably can't.
Not just that, but there's with No Man's Sky, you really get a distinct feel for that these guys have something that they are aiming for, like a specific way to play the game, a specific visual style. Like everything feels directed and focused and thought over.
See, I don't know necessarily that I'd say that, but like definitely like the vision and focus, like they have in their mind exactly what this game is.
Yeah,
and it's not going to be any like. At one point, he's asked about multiplayer, and he pointed out that like everyone's going to spawn on their own planet in No Man's Sky, right? Like Sean Murray's like, everyone's going to spawn on their own planet, and it's like the galaxy, so it's pretty big.
Unless you can invent faster than light travel by yourself.
Right, like you're likely never going to meet anyone else. And he even says, like in the interview, he's like, that's probably a really terrible thing to do, like to take you away from your friends in a video game and basically tell you that you're never going to see them.
Yeah.
Like, it's really terrible, but that doesn't matter to them. Like, this is what this game is.
Yeah.
And if like, basically, and he doesn't come across this way, but the bottom line is, if you don't like that, then this isn't the game for you to play.
Yeah.
That's admirable.
It definitely feels like they made a decision about what the game is.
Yeah, and it also feels too like to contrast him and like my impression of him versus impressions that I've had of like Peter Molyneux or even Chris Roberts in the past. Like I've actually interviewed Chris Roberts at one point, and I totally believe like he is a very smart dude. He is utterly passionate about what he's doing, and he believes that he can do it. It is the big selling point for Chris Roberts. Like, he absolutely believes that he can do this thing. But belief doesn't necessarily translate all the time, right? So, like, he believes he can, but there's nothing really, you never get the impression that, like, he knows he can. He believes he can, but he doesn't know that he can't. Like, on some deep-seated level, like, maybe there's, well, if we can't do that, that's okay. Like, there's some kind of, like, compromise in there. Whereas with Sean Murray, you get the distinct impression that not only does he know that they can do this game, but, like, it's been done. Because, like, he states in some of those interviews where he's like, yeah, we've created thousands of universes, basically. Like, he's created entire universes filled with wildlife and then just thrown them away because they weren't quite right. And he's created another one and created another one. And, like, so this game is made. Like, he knows exactly, like, they're the algorithms that they use and everything. It's just down to tweaking to get it just right. But they know absolutely 100% that they will be able to do this thing.
Having spent a whole year is really, it makes me a lot more hopeful for it. That they would spend all that time making sure that they have a solid base and not just bloating it up and saying, hey, let's tack Kerbal Space Program stuff onto this.
Right. Right, yeah. Like, they spent a whole year, and that wasn't even on, like, the engine of the game. It was just on the method of generating things. Like, and that's it. And they're using math that, like, is super interesting to play into that stuff. Like, I don't hear of any other developer that's approaching design from this perspective, basically.
I would say the only other one is the Limit Theory guy, Josh Parnell. Everybody else...
Yeah, I'll have to read up on that, for sure.
Yeah, I think that if you're digging No Man's Sky, you should take a look at Limit Theory, because it's going to be different from No Man's Sky. Like, No Man's Sky is all about exploring planets and stuff, and Limit Theory is more about finding yourself in a ecosystem, like in this sort of space ecosystem where, like, you have agents and miners and all sorts of stuff. Whereas No Man's Sky definitely seems a lot more solitary, and I guess melancholy would be a good word for it.
Yeah, I think so. That's the impression. Like there's something sad about the statement that you will see things that nobody else will ever see.
Yeah.
Like there's something really kind of almost depressing about that, but at the same time, super appealing. Like that'd be awesome.
Well,
You know?
yeah, it's kind of like watching a sunset off of like a hill kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Where it's that concept of going and finding and exploring and just sort of appreciating things, but you're the only person that's ever going to actually appreciate it. It's something special to that.
It reminds me of how I felt when, I first played Minecraft way back in the alpha days or whatever. The idea that, I could just keep walking and the world would continue until my computer shut down is amazing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that the big thing that No Man's Sky has going for it is they're very like detail oriented. Like you mentioned that they're talking about all the algorithms about how they generate the planets and sort of exactly what they want their procedural generation to be. And I think that's what sets No Man's Sky apart.
Yeah.
From like Star Citizen is the fact that this is a game that they have a vision for, and like even the guy that's in charge of the game and that's talking about the game to the public, it knows exactly what he wants the game to be and how he can accomplish that. And like you listen to Chris Roberts talk, he's very passionate about the game, and Chris Roberts is a very smart fellow.
Yeah.
But you don't get a sense that he knows how stuff is going to get done. He just wants to do it. He's like with oh my god, we're talking about Star Citizen again.
Well, I mean, I think it's fair though, right? Because like we're approaching this point in time where a lot of these different games are coming out, and they all essentially want to go down the same road. Maybe not necessarily in the same vehicle, but they want to go down the same road, which is like these big, grand experiments, more or less, that allow you to do any number of things. Like they're trying to get away from these more scripted experiences that have been the norm for some time now. EVE Online accepted, basically. What's super, super interesting about the whole thing is if you kind of back up a little bit and you look at it all, you definitely start to get a sense for maybe not success or failure of these titles, but like just outright feasibility. Like how likely is it that this game will be able to deliver any of the things it wants to? And Star Citizen is not necessarily looking so hot on that front. Like it's already having problems with the most basic of its multiplayer functions. And that's difficult. And while we all sit back and marvel at the fact that this company has gathered $50 million from regular Joes without releasing a real game necessarily, $50 million in development terms isn't a whole lot anymore. Like,
well, it is actually enough to bump Star Citizen into one of the most expensive games ever made. It's worth pointing out that
right, but like that loses its meaning when you look at Destiny, which is coming out, that reportedly took $500 million to make. Like,
although Bungie has said that that's not accurate, but
it's right, but like it's been bandied about enough times where I feel like the order of magnitude is on the right scale.
Yeah,
maybe not the exact number, but that's the thing is you're talking about like yes, $50 million is a lot of money to make a game. It's a lot of money. Period. I'd take $50 million. That'd be pretty sweet. But but like in terms of magnitude, it's a whole nother level down, and yet wants to accomplish so much more. Ultimately, and so that's kind of you start to look at it and be like, ah.
Well, and there's kind of the principle that like a game needs to do something in order to make itself interesting, and Star Citizen at the moment doesn't do anything. Like, you can look at games that are equally ambitious, like Dwarf Fortress is probably the only game that I can think of that has that scale of ambition where it just wants to be everything, right? Mm-hmm. But the guy that makes Dwarf Fortress, Tarn Adams, he really knows exactly what's going on in his game, or at least he knows exactly what he wants out of his game. I don't. If his bug list is any indication, I don't think he knows exactly what's going on in his game either. But like, have you heard some of these bugs, Mark? Where it's like,
No.
oh my god, I have to share some of them before we continue. There was one bug in the world generation where trees would literally pop out of thin air, and birds flying through the air would impact with them and explode and like hurl guts and viscera everywhere.
That's kind of amazing. Like, can they keep that?
Or like there was a minotaur that was strangling a dwarf underwater for like months with no harm to either party. Like, it was just going, like, just happening. If you yelled in the wilderness, the game would crash. Some other prime bugs include like, he gave carp, like the fish carp, gave them a really powerful bite ability, and they were super aggressive, so they quite literally like drag dwarf fishermen to their graves. Like, these cute little tiny fish, and they just fucking like bite onto the dwarf and drag it to the bottom of the ocean or whatever and drown them. Like,
That's great.
but the difference here is that Dwarf Fortress also kind of wants to be everything, right? Like, it wants to be an economic sim, it wants to be a life sim, it wants to be a world generator, it wants to be everything. But the big thing is, like, and I hate to say this, is the developer is competent, and so far SIG has not shown that much competency. Like, everything that they've released, and I don't even think it's a matter of like, public releases are giving us a unfettered look into the development process. I think it's just a matter of this game grew out of control. It has feature bloat, it has team bloat, and they need to scale it back and focus on one thing at a time and then expand from there. But I don't know if that'll ever happen.
I think ambition itself isn't a bad thing. I'm happy that we're seeing games that are overly ambitious instead of overly conservative, like I feel like we had for a solid 6 or 7 year string there. I didn't see any revolutionary AAA games, but there's a difference between being ambitious and overreaching.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing with, like, No Man's Sky or Limit Theory is, like, it feels like they're doing what they know they can do.
Yeah.
Right? And what they're comfortable with, and what they know people are going to like, and what they know is fun. And if it's not fun, then they go in and they change it. Whereas, at least with, like, Star Citizen, like, they still defend the flight model for Star Citizen, which just baffles me, because that flight model is terrible.
Right.
It's like wading through molasses.
But the thing is, like Alikchi pretty much nailed it there, is even in Star Citizen's, shortcomings, you can feel really good about where games are going right now, because they're trying to go to places that have not been gone to before. Like, it's just people are branching out left and right and center, trying to reach for these impossible dreams, and some of them will get pretty close. Some of them will fall, pretty short. But at least people are trying. Like, at least people have these ambitions again, which is just so super cool to see. And it's a really, really cool time to be, like, watching the game industry right now, basically. But,
for sure.
But, on that note.
Yeah, I think it's about time for us to go ahead and wrap it up. So, thanks, Mark. Thanks, Alikchi, for showing up to the podcast today.
It's an hour and 20 minutes of my life I'll never get back.
Well, it'll be a little less after we cut it down. And also good news, we have been approved for iTunes, and we have the RSS feed up. So if you hate watching YouTube videos, you can now catch the podcast on
not YouTube videos. If you hate listening to YouTube audio,
that's true. If you
hate there is no video. Nothing.
If you hate listening to YouTube, rather, and you just want to take an MP3 with you on the go, we now have an RSS feed. We have iTunes set up and everything like that. So you can plug us in and go do your exercise or whatever it is you want to do.
Be sure to leave a rating and tell us how terrible this podcast was.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Usage was not able to make it, so I don't know if this was better or worse.
And as usual, for all your Eve related news, reviews, features, previews, and guides, check out thebatani.com. Check it out.